For decades, Adobe operated like most software companies. They created a product, put it in a box, and sold it to you. You paid once, and that software was yours forever. You could use it for many years. It was a simple transaction. You gave them money, they gave you a product, and the relationship was done. But Adobe's leadership saw a problem with this model. They would release a new version every 18 months, pouring millions into development, marketing, and distribution. And then, something frustrating happened. Many users stayed on older versions for years. Why pay for a new box if the old one worked perfectly fine? Photoshop CS3 could still edit images. Illustrator CS5 could still create logos. The software didn't stop working just because a newer version existed. This created what Adobe's board called software stagnation. Their revenue was unpredictable. Some years were great when they released a major update. Other years were terrible when users decided to skip a version. Wall Street didn't like this uncertainty. Investors wanted consistent, predictable growth. And Adobe realized something crucial. Selling a product once was a bad business model for them. So they came up with a radical solution. Instead of selling software, they would rent it. Every single month, users would have to pay to keep using their tools. If you stopped paying, the software stopped working. In May 2013, Adobe made the announcement. Creative Suite was dead. Creative Cloud was the future. There would be no more perpetual licenses, no more buying software outright. If you wanted to use Adobe products, you had to subscribe. The creative community erupted in anger. Petitions were signed. Boycotts were threatened. Forums filled with outrage. But Adobe didn't back down. Before the subscription model, Adobe had to convince you to upgrade. But with subscriptions, they didn't need to convince you of anything. You were already paying. Every month. Creative Cloud launched at $50 per month for the full suite. Today, in 2026, it's closer to $60 per month depending on your plan. If you stop paying, everything stops working. It's not just that the software stops working. Your files become hostage. If you cancel your subscription, you don't just lose access to the tools. You lose access to your own work. For people who have been using Adobe for many years, they have thousands of files and projects. If you stop paying your monthly fee, all of that work is locked away. Adobe don't just rent you software. They rent you access to your own creative history. And once you're trapped in this system, leaving becomes almost impossible. The cost of switching isn't just learning new software, it's potentially losing access to a decade of work. Once Adobe proved that creative professionals would pay monthly fees rather than abandon their tools and their file archives, every other software company took notice. Now, in 2026, the average creative professional subscribes to dozens of services. The costs of the tools add up to hundreds of dollars per month for a professional. What used to be one-time purchases totaling a few $1,000s has become permanent monthly expenses totaling tens of thousands over a career. But critics argue that Adobe had a monopoly on creative software and used that power to force an unfair deal. Users didn't choose subscriptions because they were better. They chose them because they had no choice. Some competitors have tried to offer alternatives, and these tools have gained loyal followings among users who refuse to rent software. But Adobe's grip remains tight, especially in professional environments. Major agencies, studios, and corporations are locked into Adobe's ecosystem. They have decades of files in Adobe formats. Their workflows are built around Adobe tools. Their employees are trained on Adobe software. Switching would cost millions. Adobe has also made leaving harder by integrating everything. They've built a walled garden that's extremely difficult to escape once you're inside. And now, as we head deeper into 2026, Adobe is pushing AI subscriptions as the next frontier. Their new AI tools for generating images, removing objects, and enhancing photos are impressive. This raises a fundamental question about the digital age. Do we really own anything anymore? Everything we have are now becoming rentals.